the implications of cabin crew and flight crew being in the wrong places and the cost of putting them in hotels that they weren't planning for. The fact that when you take Heathrow out of action for 24 hours, it actually has implications for at least 3 days afterwards.
Thoughts on Heathrow Airport's closure are still coming in as well. You can WhatsApp us 0333 003 2353. How do you reflect on the fact that a fire at a substation has taken out the power supply to Heathrow Airport, and the Energy Secretary reveals this morning also the backup supply has been affected by that fire? Heathrow Airport will be closed all day until midnight. At least 1,300 flights are expected to be disrupted. It will be around 200,000 people who are caught up in all of this. We've heard from some of them this morning. Let's now speak to Paul Charles, who's a former Virgin Atlantic Communications Director, now owner of the PC agency. Morning, Paul.
Good morning, Callum.
So Virgin Atlantic says, perhaps stating the obvious, this has had a significant impact on our flying programme. How significant are we talking here?
This is hugely significant. I think the last time Heathrow was closed, not due to weather, for a pretty well 24-hour period, was pretty well the ash cloud of 2010, which affected so many airports, not just Heathrow, around Europe especially. But it does seem extraordinary that a fire at a substation can knock out the whole power system to a major infrastructure project like Heathrow Airport.
Paul, help us understand the impact on airlines. What sort of cost will be taken on by the disruption caused by this sort of incident?
It's a very good question, because the initial cost is an emotional one for many passengers who are affected by this, whether they're in the air already, they've taken off, especially those from the United States and the Caribbean who would have been flying overnight back towards Heathrow, and their planes turned back. That is highly emotional when you're on board. You're worried about the situation. Of course, for anybody flying out of Heathrow today on one of those 665 scheduled departures, then their flights will be cancelled, and they'll be worried about the costs they may face for holidays, car hire, hotels they may have booked, all the implications, the knock-on implications of not just the flights being cancelled themselves. And then, of course, there's the cost from a compensation point of view. The airlines, of course, may say, this is not our fault, this is the fault of Heathrow. And in that particular case, EU compensation, which would normally be payable for an unscheduled cancellation, may not be payable in this instance. So a lot of people will be out of pocket if they don't have travel insurance in place.
And what about the airlines? Will they have to absorb cost here? Will it be hundreds of thousands of pounds, millions of pounds even? We're talking about 200,000 passengers.
I would think the cost of this for airlines is going to run into 20 to 30 million pounds just for today alone. When you add up the implications of planes being out of place, and having to land in other airports like Dublin or Schiphol and being out of action for at least a day, and it's at least a day, it may be longer. The implications of cabin crew and flight crew being in the wrong places and the cost of putting them in hotels that they weren't planning for. The fact that when you take Heathrow out of action for 24 hours, it actually has implications for at least 3 days afterwards because of the planes being out of place, having to put passengers on future flights, the flight planners having to work out where their planes can land, because most of Europe's airports are going to be full, of course, as all of these flights have to go somewhere else. So yes, absolutely, millions of pounds will be the cost of this substation fire.
Paul, really good to get your insight. Thank you ever so much. I'm sure we'll speak again soon. That's Paul Charles, former Virgin Atlantic Communications Director. Let me just bring you this from Heidi Alexander, the Transport Secretary, who posts on X. I'm receiving updates on the fast-moving situation at Heathrow Airport. I'm grateful to emergency services responding to the fire and to National Grid for working to restore power to the airport and homes. I urge passengers not to travel to the airport and to contact their airline, is what the Transport Secretary's posted for you this morning. Lots of you have had questions and indeed criticisms of the infrastructure and the lack of resilience when it comes to one substation taking out the whole of Heathrow Airport. Well, Ed Miliband, the Energy Secretary, has described the fire as catastrophic. He says that the backup generator for the airport has also been affected by the fire. He says there's a further backup system which National Grid is now using, or trying to use, to restore power. So not only did the main power supply get caught up in this fire, the backup generator was also affected, and so who knows how long it'll take National Grid to get things up and running. Let's speak now to our colleague from Virgin Radio, Steve Denyer, who was, well, hoping to go to Thailand today. Morning, Steve.
Good morning.
So what do you know?
Not very much. I woke up this morning just about to start the show, just before 4 o'clock, with a text from Emirates Airline to say the flight's been cancelled. London Heathrow is closed. You either need to rebook your flight or speak to your travel agent. Lots of people book these. It was a holiday, by the way, to Thailand later on today. So I booked it with lastminute.com, which is an online travel agent. So you book the hotel and the flight all together. Now, they're not answering. They've just got like a kind of a bot in a chat room taking questions. Emirates, I was just on call for over an hour this morning. They said that there's a really, really heavy, huge, heavy demand. So I really don't know what's going to happen. I was due to fly from London Heathrow at 10 to 4. It also involved a connecting flight in Dubai for the second leg. I presume both planes won't be where they were supposed to be. Yeah. And this could, and sometimes the not knowing is the worst thing. It's the headache, and it's who's going to answer. Will I get the money back? I think lots of people who go away on holiday, they book their time away, don't they? It's the most convenient time. I was due to meet friends from different parts of the world who are all coming in for this one holiday, the only week that I could take, and now it's up in the air.
Oh, man. And so in terms of what your options are, obviously you said there's nobody answering the phone, so you're you are a bit on your own when it comes to deciding what to do now. Do you still want to try to travel as soon as you can? What you're thinking?
I would love to do that, and if it would be helpful, I would go to Gatwick, London Gatwick Airport maybe, but I don't want to be part of the problem.
Yes.
And I don't want to go there with my luggage only to be told, well, you've got to pay for another flight, or there's no way you can do this and you've got to stay at the airport. So it would just be great for some answers to come out now. We're 4 hours away from this being announced. I, as a passenger, don't know a thing. And I haven't been told anything about this.